Well, we've all heard it said there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics. But it turns out, even amongst the world of those damned lies called statistics, there are some that are even worse than others. And it was recently brought to my attention, thanks to a Lotus Eaters podcast, that perhaps some of those worst statistics of all may actually be in the area of job seeking. What am I talking about? Well, I've brought on Harry Robinson from the Lotus Eaters podcast to bring us up to speed. Harry, welcome to the Aussie Wire.
Thank you very much for having me on. I'm grateful to be here.
Well, thank you so much for making the time. We've got time zone differences, so we've managed to make it work, and I'm very, very glad that we have. Now, we're going to put a link to this particular episode of your podcast into the description of this video because I think it's well worth watching, and you cover a lot of ground. But I want to start at this problem of job vacancies and job seeking. Can you bring us up to speed? You've identified that even the jobs that are being advertised may not even be real.
Yes, this is a problem that's often referred to as ghost jobs. This isn't a problem that I specifically have identified, but it's very easy to do a quick Google search and be able to find all the information that you need about these. So what I was reporting on in the podcast segment that you've been referring to was a survey that was from an online loan company called Clarify Capital. And this has been reported on by Mashable. It's been reported on by Indeed. Indeed being the UK's, I think, #1 job listing website, where it provided information that the survey found 60% of job postings online are kept active for more than 1 month. And of those, 43% of managers who are putting these listings online said that they post job offerings to give the impression that the company is growing without necessarily having the intention to fill these job offers.
Wow.
They also have them online. 34% of them in this same survey said that they only keep them online so that they can placate overworked employees. So what they're doing is they're saying, because we've all worked menial retail jobs where you're understaffed, you're overworked, everybody is constantly struggling, and you're waiting for the cavalry to come in. You want somebody to come and lift off some of that burden from your shoulders. And so your manager might say, well, we're looking for people at the moment. We're looking for people right now, and we'll be able to fill up those positions. And it gives you that little boost. It gives you that little bit of hope, and you carry on. But a lot of people notice that those jobs don't ever get filled. Those positions don't ever get filled. Or if they do, the person will come in for a week, decide it's not for them, they'll leave, you don't get any burden taken off of your shoulders, and then the job never gets filled in the future. Anecdotally, my own fiance earlier on this year was working at a chain of corner shops, the Co-op, and her manager was very much in that way. He was putting up these job positions online saying, we'll fill this position very soon, and then you'll get all of this burden taken off your shoulder, because the job was in an area that was not only very, very busy, but also had lots of people coming in and stealing from the shop constantly. And they had they were chronically understaffed. And he said, we'll get this burden off your shoulders, we'll get these positions filled, and you won't have to worry about it anymore. You'll be better, motivated, and you'll feel safer as well. Never happened.
Well, this is only one of the many layers that job seekers face, one of the many trials, I guess, that job seekers face. We've got this issue that you've identified here where the job doesn't even necessarily exist, or if it does, they're not actually wanting to fill it. We've also got the issue here. Now, I've grabbed some old articles here deliberately just to illustrate how long this issue has been going on, where the employment agencies, this is the agency that's supposed to help you find work, they put fake ads out there to attract people to sign up to the agency in order to then have them for future placements. Ironically, and this, I guess, speaks to the culture of these things. I'd love to get your thoughts on whether this is where the issue is even really coming from. These agencies themselves are often among the highest turnover agencies and one of the highest turnover industries in the world. Is this inherent to the way that we're doing work and the way that we're doing employment? Is this a fixable problem, or is this just baked into the cake?
I do think at the moment, I can't speak for recruitment, but I can speak for a very similar kind of job. I think at the moment we do have a problem where people are expected to move in and out of jobs constantly. There's no consistency. You may be expected to move vast geographical areas just to be able to get work. So people don't get any consistency in their lives. They're not allowed to tether themselves down anywhere, be able to earn a good living, buy themselves a home. This is a chronic problem in the UK where nobody can afford homes. So I've worked in a very high turnover industry in the past, and this was at call centers. The UK is absolutely filled with call centers, especially the north where I'm from. And what these jobs will have, if it's not that the stress of the job immediately puts people off so they'll stay a week and then leave, it's there are lots of landmines set in place immediately so that your manager, if you don't get along with them, or if they just don't like the look of you, can get rid of you at any point. That's all of these incredibly harsh, strict, fine targets that you have to hit at any one time, that nobody can physically meet all of these targets all at the same time. If you're focusing on one thing, like being able to do the calls efficiently, you're not focusing on another thing, which is trying to be personable during the calls. So you're never going to get everything right. And what this means is that businesses can vindictively throw you aside at any point if they want to. And I can't speak specifically for recruitment, but I imagine it might be something like that, or just the stress of the job as well.
Well, I did work in a call center once upon a time. I lasted a week. And then left when the manager was on my back because I wasn't, when at the opening of the call, I wasn't saying the entire name of the company unabridged, which was a ridiculously long name, and clearly he wanted it said. And what I was finding was if I got halfway through that name, people were hanging up. So in the interest of getting better results for the company, I abbreviated that in order to get into the actual conversation. And then he wanted to breathe down my neck over that, a prime example of what you're talking about there. But there is a problem of real jobs that actually exist, that are going unfilled. I can't speak for the UK, but certainly in Australia, we have an annual problem of not enough people to pick our fruit. Australia obviously being a big primary producing country, fruits being seasonal vegetables as well, but fruits and orchards are kind of the big one that every single year they're screaming out for more workers. And in 2022, this article here claims that there were 170,000 too few people picking fruit in that seasonal job. I mean, talking about having to move around for work, talking about short-term work. This is the epitome of all of those problems rolled into one. And yet we do need people to do this. We have sky-high food prices here in Australia, and I understand that's a global problem. And at the same time, food is going rotten on the orchard. How do we try and solve a problem like this?
Well, I can't speak exactly for the Australian situation, but I know that in the UK we have a lot of problems that stack all at the same time with this. So, one, we have the expectation for lots of businesses that they'll have immigration to be able to plug up any employment gaps that they have. And what immigration does by saturating the market with all of this very low paid labor, it drives the wages down and means that native workers are unable to do, or unwilling to do, particular jobs because it doesn't pay enough. So if you were to restrict the labor market, wages would have to go up. People might be more willing to do that. But in the UK, especially because we have such an easy to access welfare state, what happens is that people will immediately jump on the welfare vine if it is more rational for them to do so. If you're going to be able to earn more money on welfare than you would working a normal job, obviously people are going to do that. And there's also a trick of the statistics that our government does. And this is called economic inactivity. These don't get classified under unemployment statistics. So in the UK, one of the big reasons that we have this massive drive for immigration is because of the fact that we are told that we have record low unemployment, but then we also have all of these unfilled jobs. Now, those job statistics will also count all of those jobs, those ghost jobs that we've been talking about. So there is the lie there. But economic inactivity, I believe, is when you have been economically inactive, so to speak, for around 1 to 3 months, and then you get shifted over to those employment statistics instead, and not included. And a lot of that will be people on benefits. A lot of that will be people in education. A lot of that will be people who say that they're long-term sick. But a lot of them will be people, as I say, who are on benefits, who aren't working because it's not really rational for them to do so. If you improved the employment conditions for a lot of people, stopped importing all of these people from overseas, allowed wages to rise, you would be able to potentially unlock some of the labor force from those economic inactivity statistics that just go completely unused. Once again, I find it a big problem that oftentimes the problems as they actually are completely obscured by the way that the government handles the statistics, because they're able to manipulate them. They're the ones providing us the statistics, and oftentimes the news outlets reporting them are going to report them in a way that is beneficial to the narratives that the mainstream wants us to believe.
Or just repeat whatever the official government press release has said. Lies, damned lies, and statistics. You're certainly speaking my language there with the welfare trap. a situation where once people are in it, and this is not necessarily intentional, but it is certainly baked into the design of the welfare system. I know in the UK as well as in Australia that once you're on that welfare, there is a strong disincentive to want to start working because of how quickly you start to lose your benefits and so forth. And people can find themselves working for effective wages of insultingly low amounts of money. Look, this is a serious problem, but we're not going to solve it here today. But I think it's been good and refreshing to be able to chat with someone from the other side of the world where you're facing a lot of the same challenges. My hope is that by putting our heads together and raising awareness of these problems, of course, we can begin to see some better policies being put forward, maybe the public becoming a bit more sophisticated as to what they insist on from their politicians, and perhaps we can start to see some solutions. But thank you so much for coming on the Aussie Wire. I look forward to speaking with you again in future.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Cheers.